A very warm welcome to one and all. Myself Achyut. I am working as an assistant professor in Department of Civil Engineering. Today I am going to speak on the subject which has been very much important towards the societal concern, irrespective of all the branches in an engineering, and with respect to the needs and necessity of the mother nature and how to utilize it and how to respect it. The subject is none other than environmental studies. So, subject code is 15CIV59, environmental studies. You people might have wondering why the subject has been kept and what is the necessity. We know everything regarding to the environment, and we are least bothered regarding all these things. These are the words that we are going to hear in a common basis, but that is not the true aspect. It is only the pseudo prestigious aspects that you are going to think about it. But in a literal sense to speak, we need to know much more than we have gone through our periodical essays of academics or maybe in our professional life. Whether you might be any sorts of an engineer, it may be to the civil engineer or maybe a mechanical engineer or even the software engineering or even the chemical engineering, each and every engineering aspects has something to do with environment. Okay? Let us get to know what does the term environment it refers to, why the subject they have kept it as only studies, why not an engineering, why not a science, why not any other things and all. Okay? For that particular sort of an purpose, let us get to know the term environment, what does it refers to. Now, while referring to the term environment, it is mainly derived from the French word environ. The French word environ, it refers to surrounding. It refers to surrounding. That means things which surround us, everything is what we are going to call it as environment. Okay? In the literal sense, things surrounding us is what we call it as environment. Okay, what are those things and all? What are those components it mainly comprises of? Mainly there are two broad sense of an categorization. First one is the non-living component. We call it as abiotic component. And second one is biotic component. Now let us get to know what is meant by abiotic component as well as biotic component. The term here abiotic, it refers to non-living organism or any other sorts of an material. The non-living part is mainly referred as abiotic because it doesn't possess any sorts of an life. Okay? What are those examples that you need to come across? This abiotic component, it mainly comprises of 5 different elements. We call it as the greater elements. What are those? Mainly, if you're going to take it here, in the case of an earthen element, and then water, then air, literally speaking, even the space environment, the voidness content, and finally the thermal part. Example, it is sunlight and the heat waves. Now, these are the abiotic components. The combination or the permutation and the combination of these components has given rise to the biotic one, which we are going to call it as a theory of the transpermia, where the life has not only originated from the earth, but it has come from the any other part of the universe itself only. So therefore, here biotic components means it is completely the living organisms. What are those complete living organisms? You might have been wondering. From your lower classes, you might have studied the difference between the living things and non-living things. There is nothing but the abiotic and biotic components. These living things either may be a unicellular in nature, means single cell organisms, or maybe a multicellular organisms. Okay, this multicellular organisms begins to form an organ system, and so on, like that. Now, major examples are under this classification we come across as a protozoa, and then you also come across the different kinds of an invertebrates and vertebrates. These are the classification under the animal kingdom. In the case of the plant kingdom, we have different kind of the species also, different sorts of the plants. Hence, we are also going to call it as plants as a flora and animal as a fauna also. Now, when we have come across plants, animals, there are also other different sorts of categories, maybe even including bacteria and fungi. These are the fundamental things you might have studied in the lower aspect of the classes. But the concept does not only remain knowing all this particular aspect. There is something hidden part that human intelligence has not known in complete manner. Still the research is being going on, and still varieties of the applications and even the technologies has also been involved to get to know what is the deeper aspect related to the soil, or maybe for the earthquakes or any other things. In the case of the water, hydrogeological aspects, okay, where the water is being distributed, how it is being contaminated, what are the sorts of the treatment, air environment, which is an essential part to breathe. Therefore, in the space as well as thermal environment, all these things are necessarily required. We call it as a microcosm and mesocosm. Microcosm means things of the 5 greater elements which are present in our body itself only. The mesocosm means things which are being surrounding to the earth, not only restricted or limited to the earth with respect to entire universe. So that's why the term here, the things which are being surrounding us, it is nothing but complete set of abiotic as well as the biotic components which constitute to form an environment. Now you have come across the biotic as well as abiotic components. If you know these things, what else is there to think about it? Of course, we have different sorts of the problems or the imbalance in nature, what we are going to call it as. It has been arising on a day-by-day basis. Unknowingly or knowingly, we have been contributing to different sorts of the pollution. How it is? It is nothing but whatever the materials that is being coming across, the materials is to be utilized for what purpose? Mainly, we have the 3 essential amenities. Food is one thing for our survival. Clothing, obviously we need to protect our body. When the place which we have been living, that should also be protected from various sorts of agencies. That we call it as a shelter or a habitat. Okay? All the things which we are going to do is related to this. Food, clothing and shelter. These are the basic things. But over a past thousands of years ago, the environmental pollution, if you're going to take, or any other problems or imbalance in nature, it was only to the limited extent. They have given the various sorts of respect. Any culture you take, any religion you're going to take, they have some of the scriptures which has been mentioned related to the respect to the environment, not to thrive or not to tolerate for any environmental concerns. This is the major basis. Regards the industrial part of the assets that has been taking place over 2 to 300 years back, if you're going to take it, it has been ruined Mother Earth like anything. Why? What is the need or the concern? The major thing it is the greed, hunger not for the food, hunger for creating of the wealth or the materials, and then desire. It has been arising. Where? Because we need to give the shelter on this basis, like what means or any other sorts. Next, education, it has been come across in order to see that people in the society are very much well educated, so that any part in the society will always be balanced in nature. But this has not been happened on a real basis also. Only it has been kept as an ideal thing. The major part that we come across, it is related to the usage of the materials or the resources, what we call it as. These are the natural or the fundamental resources. These resources is not brought up by giving some lakhs togethers or crore togethers of money. Human cannot be able to create all these things. It is the God-given gift or the Mother Nature given gift to all of us. So when a gift is being given, it has to be valued and it has to be carefully looked upon for it, and respect has to be given and it has to be treated in a careful manner. But here what has been happening? If you take any of these things in nowadays, everything is being spoiled. Why? What is the difference? Because exploitation, you might have come across exploitation of the resources, and from this sort of an exploitation, over usage of the resources, and therefore whatever the resources has been converted in terms of an finished product, maybe through the aid of an industrial or maybe small scale or large scale, okay, that product has been utilized. Where it has been utilized? In a society. It has been utilized in a society. Okay. Now, whatever the materials which have been utilized in the society, has it been properly taken care, or it has been thrown as a waste itself only, or it is not a need of concern only? The question arises here, has the human intelligence or any sorts of a problem which has been arise, the solution has been completely given so that no problems has been arising in the nature? No, that is not at all. So therefore, the problem arises in the creation of the products or the byproducts itself only, how it has to be treated there. And simply disposal is not a mere thing to see that is not a cup of a tea itself only. That is not my problem. That is somebody's problem. Someone will take care of all these things and all. Like this way, the negligence has rendered the disastrous effect or the deleterious effects onto the environment, not only for the human beings, even for the plants, even for the animals also. Okay? That is why when the abiotic components, if they are not being present in a balanced manner, therefore it is being affecting into the living organisms, because there is a complete interaction. It is not a one way, it is a two-way interaction between the abiotic as well as the biotic components. Hence, there is a need of a concern to study the subject related to the environmental studies. Okay. Next thing that you come across is, if at all, if you might have come across the aspects like what is the engineering concerns, why they have kept, why the university has kept the subject. Therefore, there is a policy made by the Supreme Court also, and even the cabinet decision has also been taken, that is at the state basis as well as even at the central basis, to see that the forthcoming citizens are to be thriving hard to get the unpolluted or untarnished part of the natural resources. But in today's aspect, people, they grieve for looking on for the natural resources. Why? What is the reason for that? Because imbalance created by the ancestors. Why? What is the reason? Is it only related to the local scale within only our Mysore or Karnataka? Or if it is related only towards the India? No. Or it is completely regarding to the global? Yes. It is having both the local as well as the global problem. And this local as well as the global problem has been arised, and what we are going to see in today's perspective related to the COVID-19, it is nothing but the result of such somebody's act where whole world has been suffering from it. Nature has a potency to see that whatever the resources are being utilized, it should be in an optimal extent. But when it has been overexploited or disrespected, or it has been taken as a granted, therefore the next sort of the gift which will be given is the death itself only, or difficulty in survival in severe calamities, or maybe in the dissolution part of an environment itself only, or the whole collapse of the ecosystem. Therefore, this part of the subject is very much essential. Without this, without the abiotic and biotic components, nothing will be going to come into the picture for our survival. Okay. Now, related to this, you might have come across the different part of an hearings, whether it may be the protection of the trees, or conservation of the forest, or even maybe the conservation of an animals, conservation of the endangered species, or the plants, or animals, or any other things that you're going to take upon. All these things has certain aspect. Where they have come from? They have mainly come from the different statutory bodies, or what we call it as a regulatory bodies. It may be a local or maybe a federal regulatory bodies. What are those? Let us get to know. In a local scale, if you're going to take it, we come across the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board. Maybe the pollution that has been arising here. Okay, from these materials, the pollutants which have been arising, we shall discuss what is meant by the term pollutant and all when you come across in different sorts of the module. Okay, local authority. Next, which we also call it a state authority, central authority, Central Pollution Control Board. Next, there is one more authority to take care of these things, mainly related to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Now it is also called it as Ministry of Environmental Forest and Climatic Change. And this is towards our India, where the government has made the mandatory for any approval of the projects at a larger scale. If you're going to take it as a global scale, who is the major authority for this? It is none other than United Nations Environmental Program and United Nations for Climatic Change Center, and therefore we also have the World Health Organization. So these are the international sort of an organization, as well as in addition to this, we also have an international organization for standardization to take care how the usage of the materials or maybe the components to be taken care. Okay? Whatever the water that we are going to drink, if it has been contaminated, that means any of the solids or the waste which is not being utilized, if it has been deposited, can you able to drink that water? Now, another example I would like to give. If the water during the rainy season has been gushing through your homes and all, okay, that water is completely pure in nature? No, it is turbid in nature. Therefore, in that regard, what is the care you need to take? Can you able to drink the water directly? Yes or no? Think about it for this, and let me come back in the later words. But here, if you're going to take even the air environment also, okay, there are 5 different sorts of an environment I have told: earth, water, air, space, and thermal environment. Each and everything, they have been utilized in a rigorous manner, whether it may be in the form of the renewable energy resources or non-renewable energy resources, how the components are being interacting with respect to each other, all those part has some or the other loopholes. These loopholes cannot be determined in an easier manner, because when a problem has been arising, different sorts of a solution comes into the picture. But in a later words, the one solution which is being provided will be accepted by majority of the members. That is what we call it as an universal part of a solution. Therefore, air, if you're going to take it, it is an important part where the survival of the human beings is mainly a concern with respect to the inhalation process. We can live without the food for maybe 15 days, maybe water for 7 days or 3 to 4 days, but you cannot leave air without even a fraction of a minute also. That is what the importance of the air is, the major concern. Okay. Recent explosion has been happened in our India, maybe a Vizag, the gas explosion, where the people residing in the nearby areas or surrounding areas, they have been exposed to the toxic chemical, and that has been impaired so many people health, and some of them also has led to the death. Similarly, recent explosion in the Beirut, where the ammonium nitrate 2750 tons has exploded, that has impacted in various manner. Okay, not only for the society, it has been shocked the whole part of an environment itself only. The world or the country has also seen its outbreak of the explosion, which has rendered and killed many lives, and it has also impacted its economy also. Likewise, environment is not only restricted regarding to the studies, not only in the time frame of the syllabus, but it is responsible for each and every citizens, what we call it as a citizen charter, okay, and we call it as a stewardship. These are the major necessity actions to be taken, and without simply taking any sorts of an actions, it cannot be implemented. Okay? When it has been initiated, it has to be implemented, then only it is in a desirable condition which can yield a solution. Not 100%, but at least 60 to 70% it can yield the solution. Okay? That is the one concern. Now, this environment has also some of the outer covering aspects. What is that? If you're going to take the environment as a whole, like an universal set, okay, the society is a subset of the environment. If a society has to live in a balanced manner, its economic concern is also one thing. This economic concern is mainly based on the decision making process. Okay? And therefore, this decision is to be taken by the people. What kind of the people? The people who take the leadership, people who are being collectively responsible for thriving hard to protect the environment and to come forward with the new sorts of innovations that we're going to call it as a sustainability. Okay? Nowadays, you might have been hearing sustainability. It is also at the local as well as central as well as even into the global scale also. Therefore, these are the one set of the components that you need to study on a regular part of the basis. Now, to take the decision making, what are the uses if you're going to see or go through the environmental studies? Maybe if you're going to take in the case of the mechanical engineering, there is one institute where regarding the energy consumption utilization, curbing of the emissions of any of the greenhouse gases or any other things will be done. It's a mechanical engineer who need to design and modify the manufacturing process properly. If you take any software engineer, he has to be concerned in the developing of the simulation software or any other modeling software. Therefore, he has to be held responsible. You can also go and check various websites where they hide the software for providing the environmental solutions. Okay? Next, what about the management? Yes, it has been required. The term environmental management or water quality management, waste management, everything it has been arising. Therefore, management is also one of the concern. Next, what about the chemical engineering? Yes, obviously they need to study regarding what are the reactions and transformation takes place in both natural as well as the artificial systems. That has to be done. What about the electronic students? What are the major things that they can go for developing it? It is the sensors they're going to develop it. By the usage of the remote sensing, we can able to come across for the providing various sorts of a solution, and development of the sensors or the instruments, maybe instrumentation technology students or any other things. Therefore, you need to develop to determine what is the concentration of various physical or chemical or any biological parameters. So, still there are various sorts of the things which has been left aside itself only. People are striving hard in the category of their research. Therefore, the environmental studies is not only limited just only to study, whereas it is an eye-opener for each and every person to see that what is my contribution towards the society in preserving and sustaining the environment. Okay? These are the regards where you're going to give the credit to the societal concern. What is the major basis that we need to take upon is the one of the important aspect. Okay? Let us get to know the concepts one by one, which is being covered in the module 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 5. Mainly, module 1, it covers related to the ecosystem and its fundamental aspects. Module 2, it covers on the concepts of energy systems, flow and the materials for the sustainable development. Module number 3, it mainly concentrate on the different sorts of the pollutants, how it is being arising. It is not only with respect to the soil pollutant, water pollution or air pollution, or what we call it as a thermal pollution, all those things. Next, what are the mitigation aspects that you come across, especially the new emerging sorts of technologies, whether it may be a carbon emission or the carbon footprint, all those things. And finally, what are the advantages of an environmental education to be taken care of this. Likewise, we have varieties of tools or the techniques to determine the impact and giving the alternative solutions towards the environmental problems. Okay? So, all these things can be covered up in the subject of environmental studies, and thereby I am going to wish you all the best for the next part of the studies. Hope so it will be a very interactive session and it's a very informative session also in the upcoming classes. Thereby you can be able to see the various concepts covered by our colleagues, and therefore you can able to implement regarding to your career also. Okay? One more thing, whatever the subject that you are going to study, it also has its objectives as well as the outcomes. What are those? You will be going to study in the next part of the class. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you, one and all.